Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm hoping you guys are having a fantastic day. So in today's video, as you can tell by the title, we'll be looking at the long range outlook. And this will be more specifically focused on the temperatures because that is really what is more interesting. In terms of precipitation, there really won't be that much. A few systems, few storms, but I will be addressing those in this outlook as well. But again, mainly focusing on the temperatures. So I want to start off by looking at the GFS. This is a global forecasting system, and we are looking at the 2-meter temperature anomalies in Celsius. So this is basically showing us anywhere in the blue color below average, anywhere in the oranges to reds above average. And you can see right now we are dealing with a pretty interesting setup. We have a cooler air mass across the central portion of the United States, a very extremely warm air mass across the western United States, and a even warmer air mass across the southeastern Canadian areas and northeastern United States. You can see that some of those temperature anomalies there are reaching 16 to 20 degrees above average Celsius, so really extraordinary levels. Now, as I put this into motion, you can see that we will continue seeing the heat across the northeast and southeastern Canada kind of move away, and what we see is a hot pattern, a very warm and hot pattern developing across the central United States into this upcoming week and weekend. Southern Canada, you can see, in extreme northern United States are actually going to be quite a bit colder into this upcoming weekend, but that doesn't last for long as that cold air kind of moves away, and it's pretty much every day that's associated with cloud cover, those temperature anomalies you see. If I pull up the precipitation graph right where the cold temperatures are, we see precipitation, but notice across much of the central and eastern United States, southeastern United States, and central United States, we are seeing quite a bit of heat during this time. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, August 18th, August 19th. The only areas that are going to be cooler are potentially the coastal areas of the west, and then anywhere we see thunderstorms. You can see these little blue blobs. That is basically thunderstorm development. Anywhere we see cold temperatures are on this map is basically associated with thunderstorms. Where we do see a bit more sustained cold from an actual large air mass that moves in is across, again, southeastern Canada and the northeastern United States. Now, this is at first pretty timid and shy. It doesn't really make its way into the United States for a decent bit, but eventually it does, and you can see it by the 20th, so midweek next week, we are seeing quite a bit of this activity moving into even pretty far south across the United States. But it is important to note that with this cool-off and this cold fall blast, it is mainly across the eastern United States. It's not one of those originating across the northwest, far northwest, southwestern Canada, and then moving its way south and east. It's almost going to be moving south. It's almost going to be moving from northeast to southwest at some point, which is pretty unusual. Notice that where it is going to be cool, there's always going to be an area that is pretty much equally warm, and that is going to be across Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, Utah, Colorado. So by midweek next week, the heat really shifts away from the central United States and eastern United States and the south and goes more towards the west, while we have cooler temperatures, and quite a bit of these readings might be actually very, very cool across a lot of these areas. Let's take a look at some of these nighttime anomalies, and you can see that we have 50s, 40s, potentially even first frost across southeastern Canada there, as this large high pressure takes charge. Let's go back to these temperature anomalies and put this forward. Notice that as I put this into time, we see this stick around for a decent bit. Now, at this point, for Thursday, Friday of next week, we see more of this across the south and east, digging into the southern United States, and the areas where were cooler just a few days ago, say on Monday or Tuesday of that week, are now beginning to warm up again. So this won't be long lasting, but it definitely will last for a little bit. Look at some of these daytime temperatures. This will feel pretty nice probably for a lot of areas here. 70s, 80s across a good portion of the eastern United States. Unfortunately, this won't go all the way to the south. Probably Florida, extreme coastal areas of the Gulf are going to be experiencing additional extended heat. Let's put this a little forward into time and continue playing this because there were some indications, at least a few days ago, that there might be a secondary cool blast around that week and a half, 2 weeks out, which is very far for a model, but nonetheless, this is a long range outlook. So again, why would I not go over that? Notice that the heat begins to slowly but surely build back across the United States. That cool air kind of dwindling away a little bit across the Great Lakes there, maybe maintaining itself from a low pressure that passes through. But at this point, the long range becomes more into la la land with these forecast models, and you can see that we have again, a warm air mass continuous across the west. So during this cool down across the eastern United States, The west, unfortunately, won't really be a cool down. It will be a warm up. It will be very hot. So, and then notice that the warm air really starts overpowering the colder, and we end up with potentially a large heat wave into the late part of August, according to this most recent model run, with temperature anomalies potentially again off the charts. So that is a little bit of unfortunate news. Let's take a look at the European. I don't like this model nearly as much. It used to be my preferred model over the GFS, but the GFS had many upgrades. The European has not had many upgrades, and it is now, in my opinion, the obvious inferior model. If you take a look at the European, you can see that it advertises for generally warmth across the United States into this upcoming weekend and getting stronger. We do see that cool footprint of air across southern Canada, the southwest, and to southeastern Canada. And as this begins to intensify, we see that, again, digging into the eastern United States and potentially even the southern United States. The European differs from the GFS as it does not really show as much of a cool footprint. Still a little bit of cool off, but yeah, really just not as cool. And it shows more of the heat, and obviously as that cool down wears away, it also wears it away quicker than the GFS, and it brings in more heat as well. It doesn't necessarily show a massive heat wave for the central United States as the GFS does very far out, but still, this is remarkably warm. Let's take a look at the Ensemble. So this is many models put together combined, and let's take a look at what the GFS, so this is probably like 50 GFS members, and you can see that, yeah, they're advertising for heat in the meantime, cool across Canada and in northern, yeah, I guess extreme northern United States before the shift happens and the heat goes into the western United States, and that cool down hits the eastern and southern United States into midweek next week, and that sticks on for a few days. Notice the west is baking in the heat all this time, so into mid to late August, and then that cool down kind of dwindles away, and we see more of a neutral pattern with the ensembles. In terms of precipitation, it will be pretty boring. As I said at the beginning, it will be pretty dry. Let's take a look at the precipitation outlook. So right now we are dealing with a system, a pretty powerful storm actually across central Canada that is lingering a cold front way further south across the United States, delivering showers and storms. That will move out gradually by this weekend, and we will see again that heat building. And with that heat, there will be a little less activity, maybe towards the northern fringes of that heat across, say, Wisconsin, Minneapolis, Minnesota, the UP, Green Bay, a little bit of shower activity, and we see another low pressure moving in off the coast, which is going to be a main driver of, again, heat. We do see that high pressure beginning to try and sneak in here with that cool air across southeastern Canada, but because of these constant and concurrent systems, it will struggle again setting up across the central United States, so it only really sneaks in right there. You could see after we push away all that precipitation, all that cold front, and it finally does end up setting up across the eastern and southern United States around that time frame of, again, when that cool down would be occurring. And during that cool down, again, pretty nice weather. It won't be rainy because that high pressure keeps everything to the north or south of it. But as that high pressure dwindles away, you could see we see more activity coming in, more showers and more storms. So yeah, a pretty, I guess you could say active pattern, but depending on where you are across, the southeast, pretty active. It has been active. It will continue to be active. Across the central United States, there will be ebbs and flows of activity and non-activity. And then across southern Canada, there will be some large systems to keep an eye on for. If I take a look at the total accumulated precipitation, you can see that some areas remain very high and dry. The northeast getting in on some. New England, pretty dry. Southern Canada, definitely some activity picking up, and in the south, staying pretty active with all that tropical influence. Now I want to take a look at the Climate Prediction Center outlook. As you can see, the 8 to 14 day outlook of the Climate Prediction Center, again, kind of mimics what I was showing you with those models. Cooler air, they're not as confident how expansive it will be, and that makes sense because what I was showing you is still pretty far out, given the name of today's video, to long range outlook. So the confidence is pretty low, but again, they are thinking it's probably going to be cooler across the eastern section and potentially into the south. Though again, coastal areas probably staying warm, and then heat across the west, which is definitely going to be concerning. In terms of precipitation, you could see that where that cool off does occur, we are going to be experiencing drier conditions, and on the fringes of that high pressure, so to the west and south and to the north, but Canada's not included in here, would be above average precipitation. So that's basically it for today's video. Just wanted to give you a quick long range update, and I'll catch you all in the next episode. See ya. Bye.